Off the Grid is undoubtedly one of the hottest games, not only in crypto, but across the gaming sector. This thing has taken the world by storm. You're seeing articles in mainstream publications like Forbes at the highest level, and all of the gaming magazines, all of the gaming review people. We even have some of the most critical people about crypto gaming saying that Off the Grid is a revolutionary breakthrough for the industry. And I want to jump in today. I'm going to give you a tier list on which assets are the best to use in the game. Of course, I want you to be well equipped in this ecosystem to be able to jump in and use the weapons that are correct and really good, because at this point in time, people have figured out the meta. They know what guns are good. You need to know the same thing. So I'm going to rank everything from S, A, B, C, and avoid. And also I'm going to rank them. The ones in S tier, you should be accumulating. So this is basically an asset trading guide for the things that I would be accumulating. So we're going to jump into that in this video. Let's dive in. Like the video and subscribe to the channel down below for every single day and week market coverage, as well as in-game coverage like we have here with Off the Grid as well. Shout out to our sponsors here on In the Game. We have Epic War, Moon Tropica, FOMO, Ledger, and more. You can drop down in the description down below and check those out. And of course, I have to give a big shout out. If you're not using Nexus Labs yet, it's the portfolio tracking market tracker that I have curated myself. I use it across all of my shows. Today we're not, because we're just talking about Off the Grid, but you can check that out as well down below. You can get 7 days for free, and it's just $9.99 a month. So you can check that out in the description down below. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. And I want to go over some criteria here. So obviously I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to be ranking these weapons and these limbs, so the arms and stuff like that, from top to bottom in this video for everything you need to know to be able to optimize your gameplay and win in Off the Grid. At the end of the day, that's what we're shooting for, is to be able to jump into these games and get wins and be able to use the best weapons and best limbs so you can properly know the metas and be able to take advantage of everything that Off the Grid has to offer. So from top to bottom, we're going to be talking about not only what is the best from S to avoid, but also I think you should prioritize accumulating the things at the top of the list, because we basically have confirmation that the guns that you have earned in Off the Grid during this time period, that will be wiped away, but you will be able to keep your NFTs. So you can keep all of these skins and these guns and these limbs and these legs, and you can be able to trade them at a later point, which I think is super important. So you need to be prioritizing, stacking up these different in-game NFTs. That's what these are. These guns, the skins, the limbs, they're all NFTs. So at the end of the day, we're going to rank all these guns, we're going to rank arms, and we're also going to rank legs so you know exactly what to prioritize. Let's dive right into the list. And we are going to start with the Casper. I'll just preface this. I think the semi-automatic guns and the burst weapons. So semi-automatic means you have to continuously shoot with your trigger for a single bullet or a burst of bullets to come through. I think these weapons absolutely suck. Like, they're terrible. They might do a little more damage on average, but when someone's using a kite, which is a high rate of fire, or an M4, or a squall, or even like the other shotguns, like the Flinzer, there's just too much variation when you're using these burst weapons. And I just think for my all intensive purposes, I think the burst weapons in these games are trash. Like, I think the Casper is absolutely terrible. And I'm going to go ahead and throw this one in there too. That thing is freaking garbage. The AZV-100. I'm going to put them both in the avoid tab. There's absolutely zero reason that you should be going for these guns. I think they're garbage. I'm going to leave it at that. And it's also for the fact that if everyone was using burst weapons, okay, then maybe you could find some value there. But right now, with the current meta of the game where it is, there's just no way you should be caring about these semi-automatic weapons. Let's jump to the Vulture. Honestly, like, the Vulture's not that bad in my opinion, but I'm going to put the Vulture in B. I do think the Vulture's okay. It's an automatic weapon. It does pretty good damage. Like, it's definitely not the worst gun in the game. I'll give it that. Like, I think that there's absolutely worse weapons to be able to jump in and have. Like, for example, I think that the Partisan to me is probably C tier. I just don't like the Partisan. So, like, we can leave that to the side. I just really think that gun is pretty mediocre, to be quite honest with you. And as far as an assault rifle, it is near the bottom. But I think the Casper and the other semi-automatic one here, they're just absolutely garbage. I think the Partisan's a little bit better. So I'm going to put it in the C tier. I just don't think it's anything you should be chasing after at the end of the day. The Tacoma. So funny enough, the Tacoma is one of the guns that you land with if you respawn, like out of the sky, your teammates buy you back or whatever the case is. It's one of the default guns that they give you. And honestly, I think the Tacoma is pretty good. It has high rate of fire, does pretty good damage. The clip size could be a little better. It has like 30 bullets per clip, and the rate of fire is so fast that the gun runs through ammo pretty quickly. But honestly, I like the Tacoma. I think there's way worse weapons in this game than the freaking Tacoma. I'm going to put it in the A tier. I think the Tacoma belongs in the A tier. And there's an Avalanche Tacoma skin in there that's pretty clean. If you can go buy one of those, it could be worth something down the line. I don't know how long those are going to be available, but you can jump in right now and grab the Avalanche Tacoma. AVAX pillow in the background. Big shout out. Big Avalanche bull here. I think that one could be worth something in the future. We have the Woodpecker. This one, I'm going to be honest. I like the Woodpecker. I'm going to put it at the top of B. I think like it does a lot of damage. Quick caveat here on the Woodpecker, because to be honest, the Woodpecker, I was sleeping on this weapon, so I'm interjecting here into this video, but the Woodpecker definitely deserves a higher ranking on this list, and I want to go ahead and boost that up. To be completely honest with you, I think the Woodpecker is an A tier weapon. I think it goes right above the Tacoma. The thing about it is the clip size is small. It's only 20 bullets and it looks like a nail gun, but this thing slaps. I was really underestimating this weapon. I dropped one of my highest kill games I've ever dropped in Off the Grid, and that gameplay is actually going to be a part of a future video. But man, this Woodpecker is insane. So I am moving this up the list to the A tier. The Hawk. I think that the Hawk, so this is an LMG, fully automatic. I like the Hawk. The mobility is just kind of mediocre. So I'm going to put the Hawk at the top of B. I think it's better than both the Vulture and the Woodpecker. But the Tacoma, paired with the speed you can have, the mobility, the rate of fire, everything, I like the Tacoma better still. But I'm going to put the Hawk at the top of the B tier because I do think that it is one of the more solid weapons, especially if you're talking about off the ground. Because at the end of the day, too, you're going to have to deal with some of these weapons off the ground. The ground loot, you're going to inevitably have to. So if you're like looking at all of these weapons, I would prioritize the Tacoma, the Hawk, the Vulture, and the Woodpecker so far. And I think the Hawk is going to probably remain firmly at the top of that B tier. Now we're getting into some of the better weapons. The Kite. So the Kite here, I think this is the best SMG in the game. I don't think that that's going to change. There's really not an SMG that comes close to this. Like even the Tacoma is in a league of not even close to the Kite. The Kite to me is the best overall primary weapon in this game to be able to run. Most people run Kite sniper rifle, Kite squall, those types of things. Squall's a shotgun, for example. We'll talk about the squall here in a bit. I think the Kite is in the S tier. I would accumulate kites, common, epics, rares, whatever the case is. I would buy a lot of the Kite variations, the epics, etc., the weapon skins for the Kite. I think that the Kite's probably going to be a mainstay in this game as a staple in people's loadouts. And I think that Kite inventory items on the marketplace will always be a hot commodity. So we have our first S tier here, the Kite firmly putting itself in that S tier. Now we have the AK-47. This, to be honest, I think it's called the Terracon in the game. I just genuinely, it's weird. The Terracon and the Tacoma are the two weapons that you spawn with, like out of the sky if you get bought back or you have to respawn from a death, for example. So honestly, I think this is better than the Vulture and the Woodpecker. I think the Terracon hits. Like, this gun is really good. The Tacoma and the Terracon, you get these at the beginning of the game or, like, you know, whenever you drop in, they're viable weapons. And if you hit, like, upper body shots with these guns, they hit hard. I do think the Hawk is a little bit better than the Terracon, but I'm going to put the Terracon here at the top of that B tier, right, with the Hawk and the Woodpecker, because I think genuinely the Tacoma and the Terracon, the two weapons that you kind of default have, are really good. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you. The boom slang. Avoid this weapon like the plague. This gun will get you gunned every single time you pick it up, unless the other guy has like a pistol. Look, it does good damage, but the rate of fire is so slow. It's semi-automatic. It's just not fun to use. This gun is absolutely atrocious. Stay away from the boom slang. I really, really just implore you to not use that weapon. The proton. I know a lot of people like the proton. This gun is very popular. I would say, like, for me, I'll put it in the B tier, right behind the Terracon. I just think there's a sniper rifle on this list, and I will get to that, that is much better. Like, there will be an S tier sniper rifle on this list, and I think you stick to that one. There's no reason for you to variate from that weapon. I just think for like the proton, to me, it's good. I know people who like this weapon. To me, but this is my tier list. I'm really not a big fan. The recon drone arm. So now we're going to start mixing between arms and guns. This is going to get where it's a little bit complicated. The recon drone gives you eyes. So it gives you a little bit of awareness of where people are. This is good, but there is an S tier arm that does basically the same thing. Like, I would say is a much better option. So for me, I will put the recon drone at the top of the B tier. Like I said, I think there are arms that are just better, and we're about to talk about those here shortly. The hook shot. The hook shot's good if you need to get out of a situation. You can just basically shoot it across, and it like grabs you, and you can fly away. It's good for mobility, but I know no good players that run the hook shot as like their main thing. Like, nobody uses this that's really good at the game, and that matters. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. Like, I think there's better mobility limbs in this game. Why do you need the hook shot if you could use certain legs, which we'll talk about at the very end of this list, that could get you across the map? Like, I think that that's pretty simple, but I don't think that it's a void. Like, the hook shot is fine, but just, I would not equip it, to be quite honest with you. The slam fist. The slam fist, so it does this move where you slam people. It's pretty self-explanatory. To me, I'm avoiding the slam fist. There's no reason to equip this arm. Once again, I think the best arms are still yet to come. All of the top arms I haven't rated yet, and they're the ones that I would prioritize. I'm going to put it in the avoid category. There's no reason you should ever use this limb. Now we have the 𝗫𝗄𝗓, which is a shotgun. I am going to put this shotgun in the A tier. This thing reminds me, and watching like Clicks use this on Twitch, for example, if he's a Fortnite pro, this does remind me of the single shot shotgun from Fortnite. It's very high powered, really good weapon, single shot, whereas the Squall is automatic, but that just puts emphasis on two things. The 𝗫𝗄𝗓 does more damage per bullet, but you have to hit your shots. So if you're not an accurate player on your shooting, then you should probably stick to the Squall if you're going to use a shotgun. But to me, the 𝗫𝗄𝗓 is really good. And I'm probably going to put the 𝗫𝗄𝗓 at the top of the A tier for now. And that's where I'm going to leave it currently. The kinetic shield. I do know some people that use this just as like a mechanism to stay with some defense. It's literally a shield. You put it up and it puts up a shield. My problem is there's no offense to this at all. Like the recon drone, you know where people are. The hook shot, you can get out of situations. The kinetic shield, your mobility is terrible and you can't shoot at the same time. To me, it just that doesn't make me excited. I'm going to put the kinetic shield above the hook shot because I do just think that there are better limbs. But at the same time, I think the hook shot and kinetic shield go right hand in hand, like just right in that category of just average, I would say. Like that's just kind of the way I look at it. Now we have the paralyzer arm. The paralyzer is S tier. It basically shoots out a wave and it shows you where enemies are on the map. It can show you their body heat across the map. This thing is crazy good. All the best players use the paralyzer arm from what I've seen. It's just one of the best in the game at this point in time. I would say that is an S tier limb. I run this, for example, on all of my classes. And I'll talk about the other one that I run here in just a second. But I think that the paralyzer arm is at the top of the list. And if you can accumulate some of these paralyzer arms, I think that they're going to be worth down the line. The one thing that could derail these tier lists is if they change the meta. So the meta right now means what is really good, and they've been nerfing certain things. Nerfing means toning down their stats, like a Nerf gun, for example. Like a Nerf gun doesn't hurt when you get hit with one, for example. But at the same time, right now, I think the Kite and the Paralyzer firmly belong in that S tier of assets, weapons, limbs, etc. that you should be prioritizing both in your trading and in your loadouts. Let's talk about the next rifle, which is the 𝗖𝗢𝗓𝗔𝗬𝗓. The 𝗖𝗢𝗓𝗓𝗔𝗬𝗓. This is an avoid. Like, honestly, I don't like this weapon. I've probably never gotten a kill with this weapon. There's just no way in the world that you should be using this. If it's the only thing you find on the ground, sure, but anything above it, please replace it. I might even like that less than the semi-automatic rifles, which is saying a lot. Like, I just think, I don't know. I don't really love it. We have the trip mine arm. Self-explanatory. It literally leaves trip. You can shoot trip mines onto the floor. If an enemy runs into it, it blows up. Straightforward as it gets. The trip mine arm, to me, it's definitely for, I'm sorry if you use this. This is definitely for noobs, but I wouldn't call it a void. Like, it's fine. And if you're playing for the win in a certain, there are players who camp and play for the win. There's players who kill hunt. If you're one of those teams that wants to post up in a building, play the circle, trip mines could really work out because someone can rush into the building, trip mine hits, you and your team gang up on the guy, easy, right? But I think if you're like a guy who wants to push, get more kills in the match, hunt bounties, do missions, whatever the case is, I just don't think the trip mine is going to be worth your time unless you are a stationary type of player who camps buildings. The trip mine could really come in handy at that point in time. All right, we have the Kestrel. The Kestrel, to me, is the best sniper rifle in the game, hands down. I think the Osprey doesn't touch this at this point in time. The problem with the snipers is sometimes it is a 3-bullet down. So, like, you have to one shot, break their shield, then the third shot downs them. So you have to have patience with the sniper rifles. I think if the snipers get better, then that probably rises up into the S tier. Like, there should be certain times where it's a 2-shot. That's all I would say. But yeah, and the magnification of the default scope's not great. If you buy the certain scope to put on it, it's a lot better. To me, the Kestrel is as close to an S tier weapon that you can get, but it needs a little more to break through. And I think the weapons that are currently in the S tier, to me, just hit harder, are better to use, more well-rounded. But the Kestrel is firmly not going to move off the top of that A spot. Let's dive in to the next weapon here. And another one that just does not excite me. This is the 𝗪𝗠𝗥𝗑. The 𝗪𝗠𝗥𝗑 is pretty underwhelming. This gun, I really just do not like. I wouldn't call it an avoid. I'm going to put it at literally the very end of the C tier. I think that this weapon is just not great. But there's nothing that should say avoid it. Like, I genuinely think the Boomslang, the Casper, the Other Burst, the 𝗖𝗢𝗎𝗓 are terrible. Don't ever use those weapons, please. Unless they become like where everyone is using single shots or semi-automatic burst weapons. But it's not that case right now. The meta is automatic weapons and also close range weapons that do high rate of damage, which we're about to talk about a few of those. Skunk Paw. This is an arm attachment. The Skunk Paw poisons the enemies around. It throws up this green gas, and you can start to kind of intoxicate people. It does damage to their shields, their HP. It is pretty good if you're like posting up in a building, you want to shoot poison in there, and your boys can kind of like swarm around. But the thing is it does affect your teammates too. And like the Skunk Paw, I don't know. Once again, the best players in this game are not using the Skunk Paw. Now, if you pick it up off the ground, honestly, there are way worse things in this game than the Skunk Paw. The Skunk Paw is fine off the ground. I don't know. it just doesn't move the needle as far as movement, as far as even the damage that it does. Like, it can come in handy, but I would not equip the skunk paw arm in your loadout. I'm putting it firmly in the middle of that C tier. And to be quite honest with you, the only things I would look at from a marketplace perspective are going to be A tier and above. So the point of this video is to give you an overview of what's the best things in this game and what should you be prioritizing in the marketplace before the guns gets wiped, and then you own all of these different skins, which then when the main net comes through, which it's in test net right now, the transactions are going crazy in this game, guys. The amount of transactions in this game is wild. The on-chain activity powered by an Avalanche subnet, it's crazy to see. Like, crypto gaming is firmly back. Once the guns token launches, I think we see a crypto gaming bull run without a doubt. But for this trading purpose, I would really only prioritize A tier and upward. I think that's where the value is going to come in the current landscape of the marketplace. All right, the M4 Commodore. This is where the first one that some people might disagree with me. I think that if you're going to use an SMG, you use the kite. No doubt. Best SMG in the game. I honestly think the best AR in the game is the M4 Commodore. It has a good mix of range and close range accuracy. The damage it does is really good. I'm putting the M4 in the S tier. This gun has quietly made its way into my territory of top weapons in off the grid. This thing does great damage. It's mobile. You're not slow using it. Accurate. It has everything you need. And I think the M4 is a sleeper. I would be stacking M4 skins because right now everyone is hyper focused on the kite and the squall. Two best guns in the game, no doubt about it. I would focus on these types of things, like the M4, which I think could become way more commonly used. People are going to be looking for the nice weapon skins and stuff like that, the epic variations. I think that the biggest sleeper on this list to accumulate is probably the M4 Commodore. That's where I'm going to prioritize my trading. All right, one of the most popular ones for like really sweaty players. Sweaty, the gaming terms I allude to, I have to give definitions. Sweaty means like you're really good, like you try hard, you're crazy at the game, your KD is really high, whatever the case is. That just means you're a good player. So sweaty is a good term in this landscape of gaming, okay? So let me just preface that. Really sweaty players use the phosphor, but you have to be accurate. So like, I would say the phosphor is an A tier limb. I'm gonna put it up here in the A tier. I think that it is one of the better limbs that you could use. Honestly, and most people would probably hate, phosphor might be in the A tier. I'm gonna put it in the S tier. I think it actually belongs in the S tier, quite frankly. Like, the Phosphor Fury arm is legitimately one of the best, but you have to be accurate. So there is a caveat there. If you're really good at the game and you're accurate, the Phosphor is unreal. Some of the best players in the game run this, but if you're just a casual player, I think that there's other things that could probably be better for your game style. Let me just preface that. Now we have the Squall. Oh, man. The Squall, unfortunately, is at the top of the S tier. This gun is the most popular gun in the game. This gun is the best. It does the craziest up-close gameplay in this entire game. There is just nothing that touches it. From if you get in a gunfight, close range, and you don't have a Squall, you either need to have crazy movement, like crouch up, down, moving side to side so they can't hit you, or you need like a Squall, or maybe the kite. If you're accurate, you can take someone out with upper body shots. This is tough, and I hate doing this, but the Squall, legitimately, I don't think anyone would disagree with me. This is the most overpowered, unfair gun in this game. It is at the top of this list, by far. Do I think there's value in accumulating Squalls right now? Honestly, maybe, but I think they're so popular that the marketplace value of these long-term doesn't look as good as maybe a sleeper weapon like the Tacoma, the Flenser, the Commodore, for example. I think that those are just better accumulations if we're talking about a market perspective. Think of like looking at it as a crypto market. Everyone in gaming owns one of the three of IMX, Ronin, Super, Beam, and those are my favorite tokens, don't get me wrong. But when everyone is on those tokens, it might be beneficial to look elsewhere for the next type of play, right? So everyone right now is on the Kite Squall, by far the best 2 guns in the game. I would look a little outside of that. Maybe the Flenser if the Squall continues to get nerfed. Maybe the Tacoma. Maybe the M4 Commodore as an uprising AR. Like, that's where I would focus my attention. As they say, like, whenever the attention is one place, you look elsewhere and maybe those will rise in the marketplace. So I don't know how much value there is in buying Squalls right now. However, they're the best gun in the game. Hands down. The Javelina arm. You know, it's kind of cheap for me to do this, but I just think all these arms right here are just the same. Javelina, I'll rate it above the Skunk Paw, right below the hook shot. I just don't love it. I think that there's way better arms you can use. And to be honest, here's one. I'm going to avoid the Ripper. The Ripper arm, it's like a close range sword thing. Look, just use the Squall and then use other arms. Like, you can use the Paralyzer, the Phosphor Fury in the same loadout, or this next arm, which is Ghost. I do think Ghost is probably the 3rd best arm in this game, behind the Paralyzer and behind the Phosphor Fury. You go invisible, so it's like a 30 seconds of invisibility. It's very good. I run this on most of my loadouts. My 2 arms that I use are Paralyzer and the Ghost. So Ghost puts you invisible. Unless you use another ability, it makes you visible. Or if you're shooting, it makes you visible. However, to me, this is an S tier. A lot of good players use Ghost. To me, those 6 assets are the S tier arms and guns. We haven't gotten into legs yet, so we'll talk about that here momentarily. And maybe I'm doing it a little service by doing that. Maybe this deserves to be top of the A tier. I just prefer the Ghost over the Phosphors. I use Paralyzer for awareness, and I use Ghost to get up close to enemies to be able to sneak up and then engage a gunfight. Like, to me, it's just a good mechanism to jump into a fight with a little bit of an element of surprise. So, I mean, it is my tier list, right? But I think from a broader perspective, the Ghost arm is probably A tier, fighting to be an S tier. But let's see. I'll leave that one up for speculation that I could move it up or down. The Osprey sniper rifle. This just does way less damage than something like the Kestrel. I think it's worse than the Pro. I mean, honestly, I'm going to put the Osprey below the Vulture. I don't like the Osprey. If you're using the Osprey over the Kestrel, I highly advise you to check out the Kestrel. I put it here, the 2nd gun in the A tier. It's just way better, does more damage. To me, it's more accurate. It's a slower rate of fire. The Osprey shoots faster. I just don't like the Osprey. There's just something about it. I would 100 say, and I think the best players in the game would agree, that the Kestrel is much better as far as sniper rifles go in this game. The Buzzkilla arm, I don't know. I'm avoiding the Buzzkilla. I don't love it. I'm going to put it in that category of avoid with the Slam Fist, the Buzzkilla, and the Ripper. There's just not enough value versus other arms for me to think that that's worthwhile, in my opinion. And then the last arm on this list is the Slugger. The Slugger throws this like black goo on the floor, and it creates, you're not really able to move. Like it just kind of like, it throws you into this like mode of basically not being able to do anything. It just throws you in this pit of black goo, and it just, I don't know. To me, maybe the Buzzkilla, I'll be honest, the Buzzkilla is not a complete avoid. I'll go ahead and throw it up there in the C tier with those other limbs. They just don't excite me very much. But then when it comes to the Slugger, it's probably, I'd say Slugger's like B tier, maybe there, above the Proton. Like I would say the Slugger's okay, to be completely honest with you. It doesn't really, I don't know. I think there are way worse in this game than the Slugger arm. Let's just say that. But I don't think that the Slugger is valuable enough to use over the Ghost or over Phosphor, over Paralyzer. Just there's no way to me that they're better than that. All right, let's get into the legs. We have 4 more here. The Leapers are S tier. The Leapers are by far S tier. There's only 2 legs that I would say are even worthwhile running in this game. It's the Leapers and it's the Roadrunners. And I'm going to put them both in the S tier. The Leapers give you extreme jumping ability, and then you can fly out of situations. It's great for mobility. And then the Roadrunners, you just have like crazy speed. And you can use this in 2 ways. If you're in trouble, you can run away from a situation. Or number 2, you can run up on someone really quickly. And if you have the automatic shotgun, boom, boom, you're able to kill them. And then you can run really quickly away, reassess the gunfight, etc. They're great for mobility. And look, this game, if you haven't noticed yet, emphasis on mobility. By far, one of the most important things in this video game is how quick you can get in and out of situations, your flying away abilities, etc. That is the most important thing in this game, is your ability to get in and out of situations effectively, and that all comes down to movement. The Leapers and the Roadrunners do that every single time, so they are S tier to me. We have the Thumper legs. The Thumpers are pretty good. I'm gonna put them above the I'm gonna put them at the top of the B tier here, alongside probably above Recon Drone, to be honest. I think the Thumpers are okay. I just don't run them myself. But it always sucks whenever you see like the mortars coming in, and that's a bad feeling whenever you're on the other side of it. So while I don't use them, I hate when they're used against me. So I'll say I don't like that. However, I do think that the other ones are just way better. The Paralyzer, the Roadrunners, the the Leapers, the Phosphor, the Ghost. I just think those are better in general. And then we have the Hammerheads. It does this thing where you can jump and then you kind of like scroll down. I don't know. They're not exciting to me, and they're definitely the ones that are the worst legs, but they're not terrible. I'm going to put these at the top of C tier just because I think there are worse limbs. Like, I think the Kinetic Shield, the Buzzkilla, the Hookshot, the Javelina, Skunk Paw, Trip Mine, they're all the same category. They're just not great, in my opinion. And they're things that, to be quite honest with you, I think are the worst legs in the game. I would focus, and I would probably use the Mortar legs, the Leapers, or the Roadrunners, with preference on Leapers and Roadrunners every single day in this game. And like I had said before this tier list, I would prioritize S and A. So this is the overall tier list. In the S tier, we have the Squall, we have the Kite, we have the Paralyzer Arm, so unfair. We have the Leapers, we have the Roadrunners, we have the M4 Commodore, as well as the Phosphor Fury Arm. I think those are all firmly S tier weapons and limbs, and I would prioritize accumulating some of those. I think of the S tier, the most underrated right now would be the M4 Commodore. I think that it's a very good weapon, to be completely honest with you. It is just a great mix of range and close range. It has everything you want from an AR, and ARs are pretty slept on in this game currently. If there's any nerfs on the top weapons, I do think that the Commodore could come through as one of the better weapons in the game. And then in the A tier, we have the Ghost Arm, we have the Kestrel Sniper, the Flinzer Shotgun, the Woodpecker SMG, and the Tacoma SMG. Out of that second ranking, I think the Woodpecker is by far the one that you should maybe be prioritizing, and it could get better as this game and the meta progresses. Everything below it, like, there's nothing I'm really planning to do much accumulation on, to be completely honest. It just, I don't know. They're not currently the meta. Maybe Mortar legs, maybe an LMG if there's ever an LMG meta, maybe something like the Osprey if the Kestrel gets nerfed or something like that. But to me, I'd prioritize the S and the A tier. And for me, I'd be accumulating Commodores and Woodpeckers. I just think they're slept on weapons in this game. But let me know your thoughts. What are some of your favorite weapons in Off the Grid? What are your favorite limbs? What would be your S tier in this game? What would be your A tier? Let me know down below. And as far as the marketplace, what are you prioritizing right now? Because I'm going for weapons that are not the meta right now, but that could be the meta in the future. So I have accumulated a lot of Squalls, a lot of different Kite variations, that type of thing. But for me, I'm way more focused on guns I think could go up the ladder rather than the ones that are currently at the top, because typically games will nerf those weapons. So guys, like the video down below, subscribe to the channel. This has been the ultimate tier list for trading and accumulating and just the meta in Off the Grid as far as assets. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next next one. As always, play well, my friends, and stay bullish.